Welcome, folks, to the NSA Nugget, Episode 1 on Business Optimization Review. My name is Brian Weaver, and I'm the Vice President of Sales with NSA. So let's get the show started. Well, I'd like to introduce our two special guests today. We have both Patrick Van Putty and Davey Glantz. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello,
Hi,
Brian.
Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. So, Patrick, if I can start with you. Patrick is our President and Chief Operating Officer with NSA. He also happens to hold a CPA. Patrick, can you talk a little bit about your tenure and role that you play with NSA?
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So as Brian mentioned, my name is Patrick Van Putty. I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer of NSA Computer Exchange. I've been with NSA for 22 years, and I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about our topic today, business optimization reviews.
Excellent, Patrick. Thank you for that introduction. What I'd like to do at this point is to introduce Davey Glantz. Davey is the principal with Glantz. And Davey, if you could talk a little bit about your role with Glantz, your tenure, and a little bit about your company, please.
I sure will. Thanks, Brian. I help operate and run a privately held distribution business. We sell industrial supplies into the sign and graphics trade. I've been with Glantz going on 25 years, and we've recently engaged with NSA to do the business optimization review, feeling it was a needed step in our evolution as an organization.
So it seems only appropriate that our first Nugget event that we're holding is on business optimization review. NSA always encourages our clients, whether they're new to NSA or whether they're taking on a major project or an upgrade, to consider doing a business optimization review. So Patrick, can you talk a little bit as to why that's one of the first steps that we take and what a business optimization review really is and what it's all about?
Absolutely, Brian. So the business optimization review is one of the tools that's in the NSA tool chest that really supports part of our mission statement. And that part of the mission statement in particular says every day our mission is to support our customers with a level of service that adds productivity and adds value to their business. The business optimization review has several purposes for customers using SX Enterprise. First, it allows us to define a partner's existing state in regards to their use of SX Enterprise. How effective is the tool? Do their existing policies and procedures support the software? Are they fully leveraging the feature functionality in their current software release? The BOR process is the foundation for which a project plan will be constructed. Allowing senior business consultants of NSA, who all have at least 15 years experience, establish a relationship and earn credibility with the staff from each functional area. In this transition period where you're migrating from SX Enterprise to Cloud Suite distribution, there is an enormous opportunity here for each and every one of our customers. The ability to review existing policies and procedures, finding ways to add productivity and profitability to your business. It is another building block in our partnership.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Patrick. Certainly, the business optimization review is a fairly involved process. Is there anything a client can do to best prepare for getting the business optimization review underway?
Yeah, I think there's lots of things they can do, Brian, and I think what I'd like to talk a little bit about is the process that's involved. And as we go through that process, identify some of the preparation the customers can do. The format for the BOR does vary today by client. Historically, they've always been conducted on site, but today, due to the pandemic, we are working with customers to determine which format or hybrid is most appropriate. The BOR will start with the client completing a short questionnaire, providing NSA with existing documentation for processes, standard operating procedures, and policy and procedural manuals if they have them. Once the information is reviewed, NSA consultants will meet on site or remotely to start the process. We will meet with the executive team, back office staff, branch managers, line supervisors, and functional area leads. This is not a conference room exercise, but a hands-on review of each functional area, how data is processed through SX Enterprise and any manual systems. Some of the preparation that customers can start with is completing of the questionnaire. Provide NSA with documentation regarding process flows, critical reports they're using today, forms. And then the last part of the preparation that goes into effect is really to have a short meeting, or usually on site, but in today's world, again, remote, meeting with NSA and the client's team to discuss logistics as well as any initial questions.
Excellent. Well, Patrick, you did mention that obviously this is done specifically for every client, so there's no two that are identical. But can you give us a kind of a rough idea as to approximately how long the BOR process would tend to take?
Yeah, I absolutely can. Historically, what you're looking at, the amount of time will vary depending upon each customer and the number of branches they may be required to be reviewed. But normally, as we go through this process, you're looking at roughly a 3-week time period from start to finish to complete the process. The first week, NSA will have 2 to 4 business consultants that will meet with the executive team in functional areas. The second week, follow-up questions will be reviewed, and the write-up process will start. The third week, the write-up process is completed, and an executive review report is reviewed with the management team of the client.
Excellent. Well, Patrick, thank you. And Davey, during your introduction, you mentioned the fact that you've recently gone through a BOR with NSA. So I'd like to ask you specifically, can you talk a little bit about your experience in going through that process and share with our listeners what that process was like for you, and how long it took, and maybe what your experience has been?
Well, Brian, I can. I'm here, so I lived through it. I can promise you that you'll get through it. As I had mentioned to Patrick when we had completed the BOR, and seeing the booklet upon which we received after completing it by NSA, and reviewing it diligently with our team and both the NSA team and the Glantz team, it was humbling. There was a lot of ground covered. I think you may be looking at a table of contents or one of the pages from within the BOR, but NSA team was incredibly thorough, very diligent about the process. It was strategic. They had their plan. They acted upon their plan. We were compliant with meeting their requests. I think that was very important to us, that we did not hold this process. We chose to move forward doing a BOR. So we wanted to optimize it and get the most out of it. And we certainly did. There was a lot to digest in the end. I think in sum total, the deliverable was over 85 or 90 pages, and an immense amount of valuable content, both about what the organization looks like today and feedback as to what we should be doing and thinking about when we want to construct the evolution of the organization tomorrow. The feedback and the takeaways ranged from very simplistic to easy to more difficult and complex issues that we will need to tackle over time. When we do complete the feedback from the BOR, we will be a better company for it, unquestionably.
Well, that's excellent, Davey. It sounds like the process itself was fairly straightforward, albeit, comprehensive. And it really kind of leads us into the next question that I'd like to cut over to Patrick on. And that is, Patrick, can you talk about the deliverable? Davey held up the report as to what's delivered. Can you talk a little bit as to how that's put together and how clients use that, not only for their engagements with NSA, but as Davey mentioned, just for the overall organization of the company?
Yeah, Brian, I'd be happy to do that. And I think I'd like to take a step back first and maybe talk a little bit more about the process that Davey just described, and then talk about the highlights that are generated based upon the activity. So when you think about the process that's involved, the initial discovery begins with an interview of the executive team. And obviously, Davey was a part of that. We want to know what your strategic goals are, both from a business perspective and a project perspective. What are the tactical goals that we expect or you hope to realize? What are your future growth plans, organic growth, acquisitions? Are you going to be putting in a new sales channel? All this information will ensure accurate recommendation of setup, configuration, and workflows that address current and future needs. We will review the process from quote to cash, procure to pay, leaving no stone unturned, both inside of SX Enterprises as well as any manual systems being used. This will allow us to ascertain a degree of differences between Cloud Suite distribution processes and your company's existing workflows, and to identify alternate policy and procedure changes that may be necessary to adapt those differences. Some of that is absolutely defined inside that narrative that Davey held up and showed. That report gives us that foundation. It's that building block. It's that definition of existing state today. Additional branches, we may have to visit them if they have unique situations or challenging processes or procedures. So again, what we're doing is starting with management, understanding what their pain points are, understanding what's working, what's not working, not just strategic management, but management at the functional level. And then we're actually spending hands-on time with the back office staff, the line supervisors, the managers, branch, warehouse, whatever it may be, asking, inquiring, looking at how they process information and data through the system, and then how they use that information to conduct their daily duties. We may, through that process, ask for sample screens, critical reports, files, etc. The end result of all of this process really is the start for how we're going to define and use Cloud Suite distribution. Some of the deliverables include an executive summary, a narrative of the discovery. There's always going to be a list of issues that need further discussion, whether that's process or functional. We're also going to identify a list of gaps in regards to process. And as naturally as part of this process, what we also identify are what might be some project risks. We'll gather additional collateral to support the report. At the end of the day, that business optimization review needs to stand on its own from NSA standpoint as well as the client standpoint. One of the deliverables is a list of pain points and recommendations for improvement. And again, earlier we talked about a transition period from where you are today to where you need to be or where you want to go. And frankly, this is, I think, is the first step in getting to the finish line. It's identifying what those pain points are and implementing recommendations. So many of our clients don't wait until they migrated to the new solution, but review those pain points and those recommendations and immediately implement new tools, new technology, or change process again, with our mission of adding value and productivity, it fits in perfectly with what we're trying to do.
Excellent, Patrick. So there's a few takeaways that I have from your responses there. I'd like to address Davey with them. So it appears that what the BOR really does is it helps to create this roadmap that we have. It helps to align our understanding of the client's needs as we know their business better. It helps the client understand where improvements and process improvements can be made for their business. So, Davey, that being said, I've got two questions for you. One, can you talk a little bit as to how you believe the business optimization review has helped in terms of your engagement with NSA specifically and what that means going forward for you, as well as maybe, not necessarily specifically, but can you mention, have you identified certain gaps in process improvements as you went through this process as well?
So, yeah, absolutely, Brian. So in terms of the NSA piece and having NSA get to know Glantz better, we've opened the kimono up to NSA, and they know the good, bad, and ugly about our organization. And I felt that was an important step in our long-term relationship. So by doing the BOR, they now know what works, what doesn't work, and what are significant opportunities, and that will impact time and resource allocation going forward. This, for Patrick, was a must-do when we first started this engagement with NSA on our road to CSD. I didn't understand at that time why Patrick was so adamant about doing the BOR. I was also concerned because of the environment we were in, would we get the most out of the BOR? Having now done it, completed it, and lived through it, I can understand why Patrick felt this was so important for them being NSA to be able to effectively do their job with Glantz. And I envision that process to take place over the coming 18 to 24 months. So this was a small window within that time frame. And I will speak to the efficiency of the BOR in the environment we're in. There was originally going to be some on-site work done. We had a bit of an audible opportunity and we called it. And I think for the most part, I know for the most part, about 90% of the BOR was completed remotely. And it worked, frankly, incredibly well and efficient, and was efficient. So I was satisfied with the way it played out. In terms of your second part, Brian, if I could, one of the things we wanted to do as an organization was strike while the iron was hot. So soon after the completion of the BOR, myself and other executives within the organization huddled in a conference room, safely, socially distant, for about a day and a half. And there were approximately 150 round number pain points that Patrick spoke to about Glantz. And again, some insignificant and some pretty substantial that we will have to work on over time. And we categorized each one of those. We talked about the importance. We talked about the ability to improve. We talked about the necessity to improve. Was it real? Was it something that we wanted to tackle now, or will it wait? Will it be something that we will deal with as we evolve and move to CSD? So in summary, after that day and a half, there were probably 30 items that I think we will tackle and improve upon in some way, shape, or form in the coming quarter to 2 quarters as we get into 2021.
Excellent. Well, Davey, thank you for that. And I want to touch on something that you said because NSA believes it's such an important element of our organization, and that is the trust that's required to be able to conduct something like this. You mentioned opening up the kimono, and we so greatly appreciate that level of trust, and we feel that it's earned every day. And it's truly a partnership that we have with our customers. And the BOR is probably a great example of that showing fulfillment. Patrick, I'd like to come back to something you said earlier, because we talked about how the BOR has changed specifically this year in terms of being much more of a remote process, where it's typically done on site. And Davey's point that about 90% of his BOR was done remotely. So can you talk about what the changes have been in terms of methodology and process? Maybe not only this year, but talk to this year as well, but just in general, how it's evolved over the course of the past few years.
Yeah, Brian, we've been doing business optimization reviews for about 15 years. And when we first started the process, it was more of what I would consider to be a conference room project where, we would give the client a questionnaire to answer, spend a day or two on site reviewing it with them, and then proceeding to move to the next process as far as an implementation or migration went. And again, what happened over time is we found that information just wasn't enough. Most clients we find know what they know, and they may not know anything outside of that. So it's very difficult to get a true picture of an existing state of a client from just a questionnaire. So that evolved to a questionnaire and then time in a conference room with us completing the questionnaire or filling in the blanks, really shuffling in and out functional area champions, managers, etc. And again, it increased our knowledge, but not to the extent that was really required in today's environment. And so the final evolution piece was where we're at today, and it's again evolved again because of COVID. But we've gone from a questionnaire to what I'll say is a conference room simulation to, all right, the consultants that NSA has, who each again have 15 years experience or more in distribution and on this software, sitting down with various departments, asking questions on why, facilitating conversation and discovery, building a foundation for a relationship. We talked about trust. We talked about confidence, etc. All that stuff has to be earned. And it has to be earned not just with Davey and his management team, but with the functional leads also. And so we have found over time that the best way to do that is to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. Having a specialist in an area of procurement sit down with a procurement manager or buyer and walking them through the process and asking questions just gave us such a deeper understanding and knowledge of our customers. And that allowed us to do what we've been trying to do all along, which is add that value we talk about, helping our customers use the tool that's available to them and maximize the investment they've made in that software. COVID took it one step further, which I didn't know if it was possible, which is really going through that same process, but virtually. And there were some concerns that I had, just like Davey mentioned. Were we going to be able to establish relationships? Could we ask the right question? Could we get the response? When you're sitting with somebody, it's easy for them to give you the attention you require. But when you're doing things virtually, there's so many distractions sometimes. But what we found with the support of the management team at Glantz, letting them know how important this was, like Davey said, I feel it was extremely successful. Now, there were pieces of the BOR that, we had to have somebody literally take a phone around or a computer around and show us certain areas. For example, the warehouse. It's very difficult to get a real sense of what the warehouse is like virtually. So we literally, as a team, in the very beginning, discussed about, well, can we have somebody have a body cam? Can we use phones? Can we use computers? We started to get outside our comfort zone and get creative with it. And I think at the end of the day, we captured a significant portion of what those pain points were and offered resolution where we could. And listen, I see this as something that's going to keep evolving with time. As our customers' requirements and needs change, this process is going to have to change with it, and we recognize that.
Excellent. Well, Patrick, thank you for that. Sounds like an awful lot of change and, some pretty quick thinking, I guess, during the unexpected, COVID epidemic as well. Davey, I'd like to come back to you and just offer you a chance for anything that I may have neglected to ask you about that you want to make sure you share with our audience about the BOR, the process, the value, whatever you'd like to mention that we haven't covered already.
I will, Brian. Something sticks out. Patrick mentioned the people on the NSA side who conduct the BOR. I was really impressed with Patrick's team. A woman by the name of Kathy really quarterbacked it, and she did a phenomenal job. And right behind Kathy were a number of other gentlemen who were really kept us on our toes, helped us, and I appreciate what they offered to our organization. So I was impressed with the group of NSA folks that assisted in our BOR. Really useful.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that,
Davey.
Davey.
Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Patrick, really was good stuff. I don't know about you so much, but your team was pretty good.
I'm just the front end, right?
You're the pretty face. You're the good-looking guy, man.
I don't know about that, Davey, but you know what? I mean, here's the thing. I'm passionate about it because I truly do believe it makes a difference. And you mentioned how adamant I was about it, and I truly am because it's a difference changer, not for NSA but for our clients, and that's what's vitally important. It for us it adds a lot. Also, it's not just a document, but anybody that is working with Glantz can pick that document up and understand where we started and have a pretty good picture of where Glantz is at today in regards to utilizing the tool called SX Enterprise.
Very good point. I will say one other thing, Brian, for prospects who are considering doing the BOR. You have to be in the right place. Leadership has to be invested in the process from start to finish. And you have to truly want to get better and be willing to look at yourself in the mirror. Don't do a BOR if you're not really willing to listen.
Well, I think those are very thoughtful words, Davey, and I think also extremely important because it's a partnership, right? It's got to work from both sides to make it successful. With this, I'd like to go ahead and thank our guests. Thank you, Davey. Thank you, Patrick, for your participation. And what I'd like to do is offer up to the audience anyone that's interested in possibly considering a BOR themselves. As Davey said, you have to be in the right moment and have the right dedication internally to getting this done. And one of the first steps we have is an initial phone interview. You can go to the NSA website, and there's a brief questionnaire on our site about a handful of questions, and you can line up a call with us, or you can reach out to any of the NSA team members, and we can have that initial call and discuss how we might start to plan things out specifically for your company. With that, I'd like to say I wish everybody success and invite you to see further NSA Nuggets. We'll have another one coming your way after the first of the year shortly. And thank you all for your participation, and I hope you got a lot out of this particular session.